Ta-da! Corrugated cardboard. So this is literally just packing cardboard, but you can get it in different wavy thicknesses or waves. So this is pretty small. This is like 1/8 of an inch bumps or waves. You can get it, or excuse me, 1/8 of an inch corrugation. You can get it thicker though, with like a 1/4 of an inch or bigger, depending on what you want to do or what scale you're working in. This is going to be the door that goes there. And yes, it is just that simple. I like to get this stuff that doesn't have like lines pressed into it the other way. So look at that, looks weird on camera. Woo! So you can see there's like a faded line. Kind of hard to tell. There you go. You can see the lines going through it. The less pronounced you can get those, the better, because once you paint this, those can show through, and then it will look like a piece of cardboard. So these are actually pretty unpronounced once I tilt them and paint them. So just something to pay attention to. You can get fresh sheets of just this nice and clean in the scrapbooking aisle of most hobby stores. They have them in, I think they're 12 by 12 sheets in the scrapbooking aisle. And I recommend that because they're nice, they're clean, they're even number, 12 by 12. You don't have to buy a roll and flatten it. They're already flat, so those are all pluses. The old ruler. And line it up. I find the sharper your knife and the harder you press, the straighter of a cut you'll get with this. If you don't have a sharp knife and you don't press that hard, you can actually cause a dent all the way down your cut. Like, watch this. Well, this is actually cutting pretty well. This knife is really sharp, but if your knife is not very sharp, you can actually basically like run a dent like that all the way down as you cut, and you don't want to do that. So sharp knife, press really hard. You'll get the cleanest possible looking cut, and it will look like good corrugated metal rather than corrugated cardboard. So now I'm just going to mark which ridge I need to cut it out of here. And this is actually on one of the up bumps. I'm just going to cut it off right there. And since this has ridges in it, I can just use my drop down as a guide. I don't have to pull out my ruler for that one. There we go. So I will probably not glue this in because I'll probably paint it separately and then glue it in. There's some scraps. Just gonna cut off this. Mr. Styrene, bring me a dream. I'm just gonna eyeball these because I'm not worried about them being perfect, because they're gonna go a short distance. Boom. Thank you, Mr. Styrene. I love you. This is what I mean. I'll probably glue these in place in here, and then I'll take the whole thing out. So let me just mark this. Where's my scissors? Look, styrene lumber. Yep. And styrene and cardboard super glues really well. So does styrene. So you can, actually, maybe I'll take this out of here because super glue will melt the foam. I don't want that to happen. Just gonna visually get this in the right spot here. Stay in place so the super glue dries. Okay. Maybe I will run some on the cardboard. When the cardboard is very absorbent, sometimes the super glue just absorbs into the cardboard and doesn't actually stick. So putting a little bit on there first, letting it dry a little, and then putting it on your piece is fine. And I'm not worried about it staining the rest of it, because we're going to paint it a totally different color and coat it in layers of paint, which will hide all of that. I'm not going to move this because this is flexible and they'll just pop off. So I'm just like going to pretend this doesn't exist and leave this over here. Dang it, I already messed it up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little kicker piece for the bottom of my door. I'm just gonna cut this off where I made my mark. Boom. And kicker, oh yeah, kicker needs to fit inside this dimension, not that dimension. Boom. I've created jigs before for cutting at angles before I had this angular cutter, or this hot wire cutter that could do angles. I've created jigs using the foam stuff before, and so that's kind of why my brain went to that. Just little jigs to assist in cutting certain shapes. There we go. Starting to cure. So we'll do a handle, and I'm going to do that with some of my scrap styrene, but I'm going to cut this thinner. Cut this even thinner. Right down the middle. Okay, where's my flat nose pliers? There they are. Flat nose pliers. Nope, I want a bigger one. I'm going to use these. And I'm going to clamp this in here. And I'm going to do something magical. Watch this. Here's a heat gun. That one bent, that one didn't. Oh, of course it broke. Of course I was trying to do that. I'll do that. You suck. Hello. Thanks for watching this video. If you're enjoying what you've seen so far, why not hit that thumbs up and check out subscribing. The footage that you are currently watching is trimmed down footage from my OW Art live streams that I try to do on Sunday evenings as often as I can here on Oilers Workshop. And you can catch me live and ask questions live. And you can see it all in real time there and interact with me while I act like a goofball and make miniatures and art and all kinds of things. So hopefully I'll see you on OW Art Live one of these coming Sundays or in future times. Go check out the full video on my live stream playlist. You're awesome. Little adorable little baby anvil. Here's some hemostats with a nail in it. And now I have some rivet holes. And I can just hammer these flat on the other side. And I can use my anvil to just hammer in some texture. I'm going to spray this with my fast set. And then I'm going to line this up. And then I'm going to do this. Ta-da! Boom! Handle. I'm going to put my pliers on it to weight it in place. So the cassette, I don't know what the actual name is in the garage world, but in the blinds world, we'd call this a cassette that this would roll up into. We're going to make the cassette for this. Probably some other better name for it, but I'm going to call it a cassette until I think of a better name, or if you guys in the chat tell me a better name, whether it's now or in the future times. We need to get a width on this. I think it's 4 inches exactly. Yep, 4 inches. Did I just go 4x1? Is that what I did? Probably did. There's about 1 trillion ways you could make this. I'm going to show you one way out of foam. And you could also do it out of all the other materials I've used tonight: styrene, plastic card, PVC sheet. You could also make it out of sheet steel or aluminum. If you've got, you know, some sheet metal brakes and bending tools, you could do that. They all look great. It just kind of depends on what materials you're comfortable using and how much time you want to spend on it. I think if I might just go 4 inches by 1 inch by 1 inch, and that'll leave it sticking out enough. So this is a 1 inch tall piece of foam. If I cut it off at 1 inch, now I should have a 1 inch square rod of foam. So that 1 inches by 1 inches. You want to be mindful of that. Once you cut it, you don't want to dent it, because then it could take away the illusion of this looking like metal. If you know, like if you take your foam and you carve it and then you go, oh, dang it, I dented it. You won't be able to get that out unless you want that look. Sometimes you want that look for things. So now this is going to end up going in here for the cassette. You could do it square like this. Some cassettes are square. We're going to do more of a octagonal shape. You could do a pentagonal shape, where you cut off like a corner and a corner, and right, I'm going to probably do that. Or you could just cut off the bottom and then round over the top. Actually, maybe I'll do that. I'm going to do it different than I normally do it, just for you guys, but I'll show you how to do it all the way. It's pretty easy. You can do this with a knife too. I'll show you. But basically, if you have, like, imagine this is that piece, but it's just shorter. If you set this at the depth you want to take the corner off, and you hold this at a 45-degree angle very carefully. There's your little bevel. So if you were to drop this in there, well, let me do the other one here, show you what I'm not going to do. There's your little hexagonal cassette. And you can imagine your roll-up door rolling up into that, and that would cover the circular shape of your cassette, right? And you could coat this with Mod Podge, and you could get it a little bit hard, and then you could paint it with like silver paint. Hold this at 45, just drag it through. There we go. So there's your profile, and then I'm going to round over the top here. I'll show you how to do it with a knife too. It's not hard. I'm sure you can already tell how to do it, but just for argument's sake, I'm just going to round over the top here. I'm just standing on an angle on that corner, and I'm kind of rotating my block back and forth. Just refining it a little bit. And there we go. There's a nice little profile. And sometimes there's details on the sides here where it looks like something's been punched in and something's been welded on from the inside. You could do that. So basically, this will go right here and be our little cassette for that to roll up into, right? And like I said, you could build this whole shell if you want out of single surface edges, metal, plastic, styrene if you want. You can add a lot more detail that way. That's a lot more sharp edged, but this also looks just great like this, as long as you take your time and paint it nicely. So you could do the same thing with a knife. If you don't have a hot wire cutter and you get your knife, get your 1 inch piece of foam. I'll show you how to do it without a hot wire cutter. So I'm going to line this up on my grid here and cut off my 1 inch piece. Just visually lining this up with what's below. My bigger knife, and I'm just going to run a line. That is a very dull blade. I need a new blade. Let's try that again. There we go. Deep enough to where I can just plunge it now. Oops, okay, that blade was pretty dull. That's okay. Start to smooth that out. This is 120 grit sandpaper. Voila. So, obviously you could use this as your backside since it's rough if you do a rough cut. But all you gotta do is line it up. Start the edge, one of your edges, like that. And then you can literally just, if you have a sharp blade, you can just cut it off. I usually saw back and forth very slowly and try to do long strokes. You also don't have to do it this way. You can put it down on the table, but it's kind of a small piece for my big hands, so I have to find I do better when I hold it. And obviously, yes, this is very rough, but as I just showed you with that 120 grit sandpaper, oops, of course my paper is tearing it, because I'm trying to teach you how to do it. And we just smoothed it out. That was just because of my tear on my sandpaper there. My bad. But you can see how, if you're doing everything not in a rush, and you have a sharp blade and fresh sandpaper, you can get a nice smooth surface right there. So you can put some details on the end. Like I was saying, a lot of times on these, if you want it to look like it's joined pieces of metal, you can use the same technique we use to do brick, where we just cut in some details. And just make it look like it's an assembled piece of material, right? Doesn't have to make perfect sense, but make it look like somebody put that together. Run a pen through it, right? And then when you paint that, it'll kind of fill in with some paint, and you'll get like a little bit of a sharp edge right there. So I won't do it over here because it's going to be in the corner. And then if you wanted to create a seam, you know, you could make it look like maybe this metal was bent and folded over. You pick a place where you think there might be a seam and just cut a seam in it. You know, and then maybe they riveted some stuff together, so you've got some nail holes, some rivet holes for the sheet metal. You don't have to do all this, right? But I would tell you to go out into your city and look at some of these. They're all going to be different in different styles depending on when they were made and who made them and what company did it. But these are just little types of details you can add to anything, really. That one was not centered, that's okay. So, right, looks like you're not going to like look at this, but like the shadows and interest that it creates from underneath or looking at this angle, you'll be able to tell that there's more detail down here, which makes it look more lifelike. Maybe there's a little seam going around the outer edge right here. Little tiny seam. Maybe this was a piece of corner bead that was put on. I'm going to stop it right there. Right there. So maybe this was like, there's like a frame under this, and the sheet metal was placed on here and then placed down here and then riveted together at this joint here. And then this was, there's an end cap and end cap, and then they have a corner piece that's manufactured that they put in place, you know, and weld on or something like that, right? I just kind of try to come up with a reason. There's details, and then it starts to, people won't question it. If you have a reason you put it there, it makes sense to you sort of structurally, people will, it'll sell the idea. People won't look at that and go, that's not how that's made. They'll go, yeah, that looks real. You know, I mean, maybe somebody who makes these might go, that's not how I would do that. But, you know, what are the chances the person who makes those is going to look at that every day? It's like, you know, so, but this is how you can kind of make stuff up. I ran my pen over the edge a little there, but that's okay. It'll go away when I paint it. That's how you can kind of make details up and still sell the idea of realism, you know? After much fiddling, this is how my door turned out. That's how my shroud turned out. And this is what you saw me build in the video. I just did a lot of stippling with blacks and grays and oranges and greens after laying down my sort of army green main color, and did some dry brushing with some silver and some weathering with some dirty sort of black paint water. And that's how we got this effect here on this door. Give it a shot. Have fun.